Good evening, one and all. I am very happy to welcome our evening speaker, Dr. Jenny Raffel. Uh, Dr. Jenny Raffel is a psychologist and she's from Kerala and she has 22 years experience, 8 years in counseling and we uh, we welcome you, ma'am. Uh, we hand over the session to you. You can take up the session. All the best, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Dear Mary Florence, thanks a lot. Let me try to share the PPT first before starting the presentation. And let me inform you that I'm very much glad and I feel very much privileged to be on this platform to speak about this topic, that is ADHD, because this is the need of the hour. Because after Corona, we can see that number of children and number of students suffering from ADHD has been increased, and it is high time that we adjust this social as well as educational issue of ADHD, because so much things has to be considered. So this webinar will be focusing on understanding on, this is the title of this webinar, this presentation, that is we will be making an attempt to understand ADHD in a better way, in the sense that we have understood almost all the biological and psychological mechanism underlying ADHD. But the fact is that our understanding about ADHD is still incomplete. That is, we know that, for example, we know that it is the interaction between the genes and environment which is resulting in this ailment called ADHD. But what kind of what kind of environment is causing or contributing towards, and how it is causing this disease, and what we can do, what can happen by understanding the role of the environment in a better manner. For example, if the caretakers have a good insight into the role of environment, how environment influences ADHD. This gap in the understanding I would like to address, because we are yet to come to terms with what kind of environment and what parenting standards are influencing this disease called ADHD. So in the first session, first few slides, I will be going through our old understanding, that is our current understanding, not old understanding, that current understanding of ADHD. And after that, I will be inviting onlookers of this webinar, participants of this webinar, to build, in order to build a new perspective on this disease called ADHD. So get prepared to have to change or to add something new in the process of understanding this disease called ADHD. Let us proceed. So contemporary understanding of ADHD, this is the basic idea of ADHD. It is a neurobiological disorder. And you see that typically we are well aware of the symptoms of ADHD. That is, there are major 3 symptoms can be noticed in the children suffering from ADHD. That is hyperactivity, impulsivity, and lack of attention will be there. And around 7 years of age, this disease and its symptoms starts, and there is at least for 6 months, the symptoms can be visible. And you know that if we focus on what are the symptoms of inattention, we can notice several things in the people, I mean in the children suffering from ADHD. That is, with regard to inattention, they will be making careless mistakes, sustaining, and they will be showing difficulty in sustaining attention, difficulty in organizing, and difficulty in keeping their things, and forgetfulness. All these things may happen. And with regard to hyperactivity, they cannot just sit still. They will be always restless. They will be leaving the seat within 5 minutes of their of that. Within the 5 minutes they are required to you request the child to sit still at a seat. He just can't do that. he runs about or climbs excessively, and it often invites anger or punishment from their teachers also, and they make a lot of disturbance in the classrooms. And regarding the impulsivity, this is one of the one of the major symptoms that we notice in the students suffering from ADHD. That is, they can't just wait. They can't delay gratification. They can't wait. They can't just wait their turn. And they often blurts out answers before understanding the question. They start answering. All these, they're impulsive. Impulsively, they keep on responding to the to the messages or the actions from their environment. So impulsivity is there. And how do we know if a child has ADHD? We are well equipped. The current society know how to recognize, how to distinguish a child who is having ADHD, who is not having it. Because we have trained professionals. We take the child to the trained professional, and the persons may work for a school system, are well equipped with the means for understanding whether the child is having ADHD. And a comprehensive evaluation system is in place in order to understand whether the child is having ADHD or not. And we know how to rule out other reasons. All these things are there. So how ADHD can be diagnosed? We know that we take input from the family members and professionals, and interaction with the peers in the classroom. We observe the child and interview the parents, and we check whether there is any difficulty in conversation in the usage of language, pronunciation. Is there any difficulty in the child? And depending on these all things, we determine whether the child is having ADHD or not. And we know the treatment plans are there in place, effective treatment plans, but in most cases we depend on medicines for the treatment of ADHD, and effective therapies are there in order to complement this medicinal treatment or support this medicinal treatment. Effective therapies are in place. So we know how to help the children with ADHD. That is, caretakers must observe in their family environment.
And therapies are there in order to complement this medicinal treatment or support this medicinal treatment.
And talk regularly, consistently. There are certain practices they have to observe, caretakers as well as the child suffering from the from this disease, as well as their teachers, and as well as already almost all persons living with the child have to observe certain things, that is limited distractions, healthy varied diet, enough sleep, whether the child is getting enough sleep. We know we have to take care of these things in order to treat the children. But when we come to this question, what is the actual cause of ADD? If you search for any literature, you can see that it is not clear. It is not yet clear. We have not reached that ultimate answer regarding the cause of ADHD. What causes ADHD? But we have reached at this conclusion that it's a vague conclusion actually. That is, a combination of genes and environmental factors work together in order to produce this state called ADHD. But we must know that we haven't much idea which environmental factors in what way influence the brain mechanism or the physiology of the child in order to produce a state or illness called ADHD. We know that there exists some difference in the brain mechanism or brain anatomy of the children suffering from ADHD and those who are not having this ADHD. This difference we can notice with the help of 21st century technology devices, scanning devices. We are capable of distinguishing the biological difference, but what kind of influence this environmental things related to environment are making, we are not yet clear, not having clear idea regarding it. It is a fact we have to agree with, and you see that. So we can say that our understanding of ADD is not complete, my dear friends. We have to agree with it. And this presentation, I'm trying to fill the gap in our understanding. That is, I want to explain what environmental factors are instrumental in producing or aggravating or in causing, and how they influence the child or the growing child or the person who is suffering from ADHD. My understanding, we can take care of many things while helping our children who is suffering from ADHD. So I'm inviting all of you to a new perspective. That is, you must know this fact that all the problems of ADHD or ADD, you know that ADHD and ADD, these are not two different things. ADHD means that attention deficit disorder with hyperactivity. ADD means that attention deficit disorder without hyperactivity. So what all the problems of ADHD cannot be explained in terms of biological, what we say that imbalance in neurochemicals or short circuit in brain mechanism. That is biological explanation will not suffice to diagnose or understand the problems related to ADHD. It is not a fixed inherited brain disorder, my dear friends. No, it is not a fixed inherited brain disorder. You have to understand this. That is illness model that we are having currently. It is only a partial stopgap response to the situations or things that we observe in ADHD students or children. So discard this illness model first of all. Get ready to think differently about ADHD. And DSM, if we explore DSM objectively, what does DSM classification is doing is it is just categorizing ADHD and related illness, just depending upon the external features. DSM classification or categorization does not address the emotional pain or emotional insecurity the child is facing. The child suffering from ADHD is facing, actually. It is a fact. You just go through the literature in DSM, I mean, that part of DSM dealing with the symptoms and diagnostic procedures involved in the ADHD. You can see that it is never addressing the emotional strain or emotional insecurity or emotional pain that the child is going to. So if you observe ADD personality or ADHD personality, you can see that they have difficulty in letting go of things compared to other persons. They have sense of urgency, all this word, but deep emotional hurt. How many of us as caretakers, parents and teachers are capable of empathizing with the deep emotional hurt that a child is suffering from? That is a question. I'm inviting you to understand or explore or view ADHD on the basis of this, that is child's emotional pain that the child is going through. You know that there is a striking imbalance in the child suffering from ADHD. That is, this imbalance is in the nature of, this nature of imbalance is this. That is, the child knows, the child is well aware of his mannerisms and his behavioral characteristics and his impulsiveness, hyperactivity. All these things happening inside him, he is well aware and he wants to change it. That is, willingness to change is there, but he can't, he just can't, because neurobiological or psychological mechanism are still, which are not in control of him, is placed there very much. So this imbalance between awareness and willingness to change and incapability of willingness, incapability for changing is there. Child is struggling from it. And you see that what is it? What is the hallmark of ADHD? We know that there are three main symptoms we can notice directly in a child or student suffering from ADHD. It is impulsivity and hyperactivity and this lack of attention. Beyond that, there is another way of explaining this. A hallmark of ADHD, it is that it is a kind of automatic unwilled turning out of mind. I repeat, automatically happens. It is unwilled, not by the will of the child, turning out of mind, a kind of non-presence. The child feels a kind of non-presence, because child feels that he can't hear, a kind of non-noticing. We can experience it if you observe the child suffering from ADHD. He's just noticing. The child himself feels that he's not hearing the things that he has been listening to. They can't hear the things that they have been listening to. They can't see the things they have been looking at. They can't remember the things that they have been paying attention to or concentrating on. Such a dilemma, that is emotional strain, is there. That is, there this non-noticing. The elders or caretakers may explain this non-noticing as something that purposefully done from the part of the child. That is, he is listening. He is listening, but he is not hearing. He is looking, but he is not seeing. Yes, this thing of non-noticing, it is very much perplexing and disturbing, and it is very much confusing for the elders or caretakers of the child suffering from ADHD. And they will be lacking order. They simply don't know how to keep order in their life from morning to evening, or even keeping keeping the things in order, just because they lack that template of order in their brain. In order to keep things in order, my dear friends, we wanted to keep things in order, or we wanted to things happen in a sequentially orderly manner. What is that we need most? Actually, we must have a mental model of order inside us in order to produce, or in order to bring out this model into the outside world, my dear friends. So, and also distractibility. ADHD student or a child is ever distracted, but we can see that certain times while indulging in certain actions, he is not distracted. For example, the actions or situations which are very much exciting and which are very much motivating, or which are very much rewarding, we can see that they spend the time in those activities. For example, video games or any other playing situations. We can say that the child suffering from ADHD is hyper focused. That is, he loses himself. He indulges in the action completely. So we think that this child who is not capable of paying attention is paying attention in this task. So what is wrong with his attention? But you must understand that children or students suffering from ADHD, if they are showing some hyper focusing in some activities like video games and all that, they are employing passive attention. That is attention. Actually, there are two kinds of attention that human beings make use of. One is passive attention, other is active attention, actually. And passive attention means that it is automatically comes within us, but active attention, we have to deliberate, we have to make some effort in order to bring our attention to the task. And active attention is needed in the tasks which are a little bit organized, which are not so interesting. For example, in order to learn academic subject, a student has to employ his active attention skills. But a student or child suffering from ADHD, his brain lacks this active attention skill. Some parents will not know about it. That is passive attention and active attention. And these children do not know what are the boundaries of interpersonal relationship. So they miss to pick up the social skills necessary for keeping relationship and building friendship and all that. So in social situations among their friends, they can't just mingle with, they can't lose themselves in social security, enjoy the social situations. Their social life suffers, and also you can see these are some features that we discussed. So our understanding of ADHD must undergo some change. That is, we must add some more points, some more angle of view to our understanding of ADHD. That is, diagnosis that we make. We must be bold enough to ask this question: is it a cop out? That is, today, if you take a student suffering from ADHD to the psychiatrist, he will explain his state as neurobiological disorder. That means the cause of this disorder is mainly in the biology. It is a medical cop-out, means that it helps. It is a psychologically soothing conclusion. This kind of diagnosis, that is, it is psychologically soothing to an incompetent parent. Parent may be incompetent. So this kind of assessment or diagnosis, that is, it is the biology of the child or hereditary of the child which led to the situation. It is psychologically soothing to the parent, incompetent parent, and as well as some lazy teachers also take comfort in this kind of diagnosis, because they have nothing to do, because it is based on the biology. How we can change the biological mechanism? That kind of attitude or approach towards a child will be there, and it is not the right approach, my dear friends. And also certain people, that is self-pitying adult, that is, I am having this biological disorder, so there is no escape from it. So these people, that is self-pitying persons, they are always reluctant to take up the challenges in their lives, any challenges in their lives. So diagnosis, it is a medical cop-out for many caretakers of the child, actually. Because in this 21st century, we must know that in this 21st century, there are social factors, environmental factors, and cultural things which are likely to, which influence this emotional mechanism, or causes emotional strain and stress of the people. We are not ready to question the role of these environmental or cultural factors in producing psychiatric ailments, because this kind of diagnosis makes a full stop or ultimate conclusion, which is not the right conclusion. We are reluctant to address the environmental factors. You know that it will be a tremendous social advancement. I repeat, it will be a tremendous social advancement if we look into the experience which turn the pupil into what we say that irresponsible, to turn people into, there are certain experiences which turn the pupil into flawed or irresponsible or even antisocial human beings. If we address these experiences, there will be tremendous social advancement, my dear friends. Because with regard to ADHD, we are not helpless in the face of ADHD, but this increased tendency to explain all the problems related to this or related to ADHD, or this tendency to shift the responsibility of negative behavior to the brain circuit, inherited brain circuit. It is helpless. Thus, that kind of approach, it will cripple our ability to enhance the mental health and well-being of our society. So, yes, of course, biological and psychological mechanism underlying ADHD, which helps us. But it serves this understanding of the biological and psychological mechanism behind ADHD. You must know they serve as a map, but map must not be misunderstood for the journey. It is up to the individual, actually, up to the individual to plot the course. Map is not final. Map is only a helping hand. But it is up to the individual suffering from ADHD to plot the course. Okay, you take a bunch of professionals in your area who are dealing with the students or children suffering from ADHD. You can see that there will be a greater, higher level of agreement among these professionals regarding what ADHD looks like, rather than what ADHD is really what ADHD is. There will be higher level of disagreement, but what ADHD looks like, there will be higher level of agreement among them. So I am leading you, all the participants, I am inviting you to a fact that better understanding of ADHD can be done if we look into the environmental factors. Environmental factors. So,
Actually, the speaker has some network issue. She'll join in 5 minutes.
Hello, dear friends. Sorry for the interruption. And I'm sorry, my internet connection was unstable. So let us continue the session dedicated to understanding ADHD in a better manner. So let us continue. So understanding ADHD, hereditary plays an important role, my dear friends. It is true that, but it is far less than we have assumed. The role of hereditary is not much, actually. I will explain it later. There are biological events happening in your system, including body and brain, which are not actually programmed by DNA or hereditary factors, actually. Of course, there is a genetic blueprint which determines the architecture and functioning and structure of your brain. But this genetic blueprint is progressed or matured not by itself, but only with the interaction with the environment. There lies the point, actually. Genetic blueprint for the functioning of the brain is not installed in you. It is a progressive in nature, and it progresses. This blueprint is formed by the interaction with the environment in which the child is being taken care of in its formative years. And you see that what we can say about ADHD is that there is inherited predisposition. Of course, we have to agree that in element of inheritance, hereditary is there a little bit. Inherited predisposition is there, but it is far from saying that there is genetic predetermination. Genetic predetermination means that it is a way of dictating that eventually you are going to get the disorder called ADHD. If we explain ADHD, that if you have that genetic element in you, you are going to, in any way, eventually, you will end up in catching the disorder. Somehow you will get. It's a dictating factor, determinant. We must not explain the situation of ADHD as a genetic predetermination. Now, in the contemporary society, this entire psychiatric world is trying to explain not only, I'm sorry, screen sharing has been disabled. Why? I'm not sure. I'm not sure why host has disabled screen sharing. Actually, okay. Okay. And you see that this genetic disposition, inherent predisposition is there, but there is no genetic predetermination. I would like to emphasize. So this way of understanding ADHD, not only ADHD, but many other diseases like OCD and schizophrenia, many other diseases in the psychiatric world, there is a tendency to explain out the things, characteristics, and symptoms that we know in terms of genetic predetermination. It is entirely wrong, my dear friends. So just look at, have a look into the immediate environment of the child. It is parenting, no, immediate environment. Let us have a look into that factors, parenting factors. You know that children can be considered as a source or impetus or incentive for the parents to learn about themselves, learn about each other. Children is a source of knowledge or impetus or incentive to learn about themselves for the parents, learn about each other, and learn about the life itself. But the question is, how many parents are approaching their role of parenting in such a way as a learning experience? Yes, we must. It's a time. Because love felt by the parent need not automatically translate it into a loving experience for the child. There is a fact like this, that is, love felt by the parent towards the child need not automatically translated into a loving experience for the child. There are certain conditions for the child to experience the love. We will enter into it. It means little to the child that his or her, the parent feels love. If the parent is constantly disappearing, anytime parent may disappear, because parent might be a working parent, So this parent might be disappearing anytime after giving birth to baby. After 3 months or 4 months, parent will start going for work. So when the parental presence, when there is the non-presence of the parent, child quickly notices it affects his emotional security. You know that constructing a sense of security becomes tough for the child, because child starts feeling unconsciously that he is not worth for the attention of the parent. That is, parent has much more things which is more interesting than him to attend to. And he feels that unconsciously, he feels that, a child feels that he has to work out, overwork in order to get the attention, in order to catch attention from the parent, or in order to meet his psychological need from the parent. As a part of it, he act out. That is, he becomes hyperactive in order to seek the attention of the parent, get the attention of the parent. He becomes impulsive. So parenting matters because child suffer from the non-presence of the parent, because continuous nurturing caregiver presence, continually available nurturing caregiver presence is a fundamental need of any child. If it is not satisfied, there will be their emotional security, sense of emotional security will be hurt. And you see that this is what we need basically in order not to have ADHD. This is what a child or student suffering from ADHD lacks, that is self-regulation of emotion and action. Is it so? Everything can be concluded like this. A child suffering from ADHD lacks this, what? Capacity to self-regulate emotion and action. You must know that as mental health professionals, or even teachers or parents, we must have this clear idea that self-regulation capacity for emotion and action, it is not something that we are born with it. Yes, we pick up that ability in the long run. That is, certain brain centers has to develop in order for the self-regulation to be realized. That is self-regulation of emotions. Certain brain centers must be developed and matured, and these certain brain centers must establish a connection with other nerve centers, and certain chemical pathways must be established, flow of neurons in certain conditions. So organic basis of ADD, what is it? If we ask that, what is the basic error with the brain that we can notice in the children suffering from ADD is that underdeveloped or underfunctioning prefrontal cortex. That is, the prefrontal cortex is the region of the brain situated just behind the forehead. The so-called abnormality in the brain is that we can notice in the brain of a child suffering from ADD is in prefrontal cortex. Lesions or any kind of damages, or if it can be noticed in the people suffering from ADHD, because you know that our capacity to exercise inhibition in these three cases, hyperactivity, lack of attention, and impulsive behavior. In these three cases, what we need to regulate these three one. It is the ability of the brain to inhibit certain actions. This inhibition, ability to inhibition, it is executed by prefrontal cortex. So any damage to that area can cause ADHD. The major task of prefrontal cortex is, we can call it as executive functions, such as making choices, that is employing inhibition for certain actions and emotions, and what we say that we make a certain choice, and we make priorities, and we select from the options. All these things, major executive rational part of the brain, major executive tasks are carried out by PFC. That is, we collect messages from the environment, from our past memory, and from the lower regions of the brain, emotional brain. We have constantly bombarded with the messages, but the capability, our capability to prioritize, to choose, and inhibit certain actions. This is called self-regulation of emotion and action. This is conducted by prefrontal cortex, and any damage in this area can cause ADD or ADHD. So basic cause that we can point out in terms of biology is this, that is chronic underactivity in the prefrontal cortex. Biologically, if we wanted to explain, this will be there, that is chronic underactivity in prefrontal cortex. So there must arise a question in our mind. That question should be like this: what life condition? It is not this underactivity in prefrontal cortex is not a contribution of hereditary, my dear friends. But certain life conditions lead to this underactivity. So what is that life condition which would inhibit or interfere with the normal development of PFC? We must be bold enough to ask this question if you are really interested in investigating the causes of ADHD, my dear friends. What prevents us from asking this question? Usually psychiatrists do not address this question. Generally, all the psychiatrists leave this question. I mean, they are reluctant to ask this question. Some psychologists are interested in this, but they do not go so far taking this question. Why is it so? Because there is a genetic fundamentalism, my dear friends. Genetic fundamentalism, well established in our medical scenario. Genetic fundamentalism means that we have that basic tendency to explain this illnesses and certain human traits in terms of genetics, or we say that inflexible laws of DNA rules the biological world. It is in your DNA. It is the DNA. We cannot change. It is the DNA which determines whether you will be having this kind of personality or this kind of behavior and this kind of, this is genetic fundamentalism, and it is absolutely wrong actually. Because these genetic fundamentalism, it is very much acceptive, it is psychologically soothing. But once we accept DNA as the cause of, or genetics as the cause of our illness, means that we need not ask questions. We are comfortable with this conclusion. We need not ask questions about our social, our way of living, our family environment, our social culture, social and cultural aspects of our life and living on this surface. We need not question those things. Our environmental aspects, we need not question. These kind of answers, that is answers based on the hereditary and DNA, are very much comfortable. And to the parents also, it gives comfort, this kind of explanation about ADHD. Because almost all parents who have given birth to a child who is suffering from ADHD, you can see that they will be carrying a guilt feeling. But an explanation based on genetics or biology is a relief, a comfort for their guilt, their pain of guilt, the pain arising from their guilt feeling. No, because it is not in the error of their parenting. They can conclude at least and they get along with the condition. So, but we must know that what are they? Genes. We call genes, genetic element, DNA, and all that. Fundamentally, what are genes? Genes are just like, they are just codes, CODES, codes for synthesizing proteins in our cells, actually, brain cells particularly. And these codes determine, and you know that this is an architectural and mechanical plans. These codes written in your genes. It is an architectural mechanical plan for the functioning and structure of your hereditary. But the question is, the thing is, the reality is that this plan written in your genes as codes cannot be realized without the help of environment. It is not the gene who determine. It is not the gene who determines whether this plan must be executed or realized. It is the environment which determines whether the codes in the genes must be implemented, must be realized actually. Because not everyone, not every child who carry the genes of ADHD or possibility of ADHD end up in disorder. This is the fact noticed. That is, everybody who are carrying the genes of ADHD will not result in the disorder. At the same time, the people suffering from the disorder, there are people suffering from the disorder ADHD. They do not always carry the genes. There might be some environmental conditions which produce the symptoms of ADHD in them. So we must be able to conclude like this. It is a sensitivity, not the disorder, which is transmitted through generations. That is, it is a sensitivity, not the disorder. So this sensitivity may result in suffering, that is in the disorder, by virtue of some environmental factors. So when we speak about the environment, it is a family atmosphere in the formative years which determine whether your genetic endowment or genetic factors of ADHD must be translated into a disorder. Emotional security is an absolute need of the child. If the child is not experiencing emotional security, they are likely to show the symptoms of ADHD. This is a fundamental need. A fundamental need is continually available. Nurturing caregiver is a fundamental need of us. So when we speak about environment, let us be specific about the environment, which is likely to produce ADHD. There are certain subtle environmental, unique environmental factor, which is capable of producing, which is capable of impacting or causing this illness called ADHD. What is it? You must be capable of asking to yourself. It is an invisible environment. Invisible environment, that is emotional environment in the family. And this emotional, actually, this emotional environment has nothing to do with the parenting style or parenting philosophies. That is a wonderful thing. That is emotional environment in the family is the major factor, whether the child is the major factor determining whether the child is likely to get ADHD or not. So this emotional environment has nothing to do with the parenting style or parenting philosophy. Then what? What is that basic thing that determines the emotional environment? It is this. It is the equanimity of minds or emotional state of parents, the relationship between the parents, relationship between the child and the parent, how much authentic and alive it is. That is a question. That is then by what it is created, a hidden factor which creates this emotional environment or emotional security. There's a hidden one and only one factor. I'm disclosing this factor to you. It is this hidden factor is attitude of the parent towards the child. Who or what the child represents for the parent, especially during the formative years. Whether the parent is capable of seeing themselves in the child. This is a hidden factor, basic factor, which determine the nature of emotional environment. That is, whether the parent can see themselves in the child. That kind of attunement is present. That is a question. There are certain conditions also we must be taken care of. That is physical security and nutrition. Of course, all these things must be taken care of. Physical security and the continuous availability of a loving parent, loving caretaker, all these things creates emotional environment, which will help the child, even if he or she is carrying the element of ADHD, it will not end up in the disorder. Yes, my dear friends. So the root cause of ADHD lies in the stressful state of parent. If the parent is stressful, if the parent is having some psychological ailment, if the parent is suffering from depression, or parent is having some family environmental issues, financial issues, All these things will contribute towards the enhancement of possibility of ADHD. In North American families, you can see that emotional strain is increasing because they are leading a frenzied lifestyle, North American families. And same is the case with the Eastern families also. We must agree with this in this 21st century. So family is the basic cause or a basic factor which determine whether a child must end up in ADHD. So answer to underdevelopment, we saw that underdevelopment or underfunctioning of PFC, prefrontal cortex, is the basic reason. But what is the answer to this underdevelopment? It is development. Answer to underdevelopment is not medication. Do not approach ADHD like that. Underdevelopment of PFC, we cannot compensate it with the medicines. No, never. Underdevelopment will not be resolved with the help of the medication. Medication helps to regulate the symptoms or ailment caused by underdevelopment. So answer to underdevelopment, it is development, but development will not happen proper way if certain conditions are set. If certain conditions are there in the environment, must be there. For example, not example, I mean, when I refer to condition, I am referring to the emotional security or emotional family environment. So these full conditions must be. So I am entering into the last portion of this presentation. So attunement is essential for normal development of neural pathways and neurochemical apparatus of attention and emotional regulation. Parent must remain herself in a relatively non-stressed, non-depressed state of mind. This is the prime requirement, especially during the formative years of the child. We compensate for lack of human contact with the crave by other means, actually. So this is what I wanted to say. That is, it is high time that we must make some changes in our way of understanding and approaching ADHD. And this is only a preliminary part that I want to say. And as a sequential, I mean, following this presentation, I want to make how do we handle the children with the help of the parenting style itself. I mean, changes in the parenting approaches. We can help the children suffering from ADHD, because due to time constraints, I cannot discuss it now. I discuss those part of this session. I mean, this ailment, how to deal with the children suffering from ADHD. There is no time to elaborate on that part of this discussion. So I focused on the matter of understanding, because it is understanding which helps us to put good ways, I mean, good strategies into practice. Once we do not understand the thing or the situation well, whatever strategies that we make use of will not make intended effect. So understanding is the first stage. We must be ready to ask questions. What kind of environment and what kind of social and cultural factors are contributing towards this illness called ADHD, and we must be bold enough to adjust those factors and help the parents and other caretakers. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak about this important topic once again, and see you again, my dear friends, on the same platform. Thank you so much.
Ma'am, you have done an excellent job.
Thank you.
And wonderful thought, because it was for me a learning session, and you have done an excellent job. Participants, you have any doubts or any interaction, you can interact with the speaker.
Yes, definitely. You can ask anything. I don't think there aren't any questions. There aren't anybody. Please come forward with questions if you have any. Otherwise, let us wind up. Mary ma'am. Okay, shall I leave the platform? Please. Any
Thank you
questions?
so much, ma'am, for our
Uh-huh.
session on the behalf of International Webinar Series and Sri Holistic Health Foundation and Sri Research Institute of Center for Art, Science and Wellbeing. We thank you wholeheartedly and we expect more sessions from you. You have done great job.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
On behalf of Ravindra sir, coordinator, moderator and coordinator for this session, I thank you wholeheartedly, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hope to see you in more sessions, ma'am.
Sure, definitely. Okay, see you. Bye-bye. Good night. Have a nice weekend.